This is going to be ranking every U.S. state shape by how useful it would be as a hand. Now I'm going to pretend that they're all proportionally about the size of a hand, and any jagged edges will be considered fingers. Number 50, a very easy choice, Wyoming. It's just a rectangle. Your hand would basically be a block and you'd have no fingers. 49, Colorado, the exact same thing, but there's a slight curve on the left side, so maybe you could use that for something. 48, North Dakota, another rectangle, another terrible hand shape, but the right side is slightly leaning, so maybe you could make some use out of that. 47, Kansas, another block-shaped hand, so not ideal, but it does have a curve in the upper right, so maybe you could hold some things. 46, New Mexico, we finally have a hand with a finger right here in the bottom, and if you hold it upside down, you could use this little gap right here to hold things. 45, Utah, a similar concept, but I think this one would be a little more useful because the smaller gap means you could hold things tighter. 44, Nebraska, another one with the corner holder, and it has a bunch of tiny fingers, but they're too small to use. 43 is South Carolina. Now, maybe you could use one of these three edges to like hook things onto, but there's really nothing you can use here to hold on to things. 42, Montana. Now, this whole side over here is absolutely useless, but the left side does have some small fingers. The problem is none of them are close enough together to pinch and pick something up with. 41 is Hawaii. Now, this would be like you had a ton of small hands, and none of those hands really have anything that would be useful as a finger, so this would not be great. 40, South Dakota. Now, this whole side over here is absolutely useless, but the right side does have some value. You've got some small fingers down here, and then up top, this little gap could be used to hold things. 39, Oregon. Now, there's no true fingers anywhere on this hand, but there are several gaps throughout that if you held them upright, you could use to hold things. 38, Connecticut, you've got a ton of small fingers to pick up small items, a big finger over here to pinch things together for bigger items, and then up top, this little gap could be used to hold things. 37, Georgia, you've got some small fingers over here, and then the corner edges could be used to hold things if you hold your hand upside down. 36, California, no real fingers, so you couldn't pick up any small items, but this little bend right here in the middle makes it ideal to pick up bigger items holding your hand like this. 35, Vermont. Now, it's not the best, but it does have several crevices that you could use to hold things up. 34, Nevada. Now, I know you won't be able to pick up much with this hand, so that's why it wasn't any higher, but the reason it made it this far is because that point right there would be phenomenal for self-defense. You get in a fight with this hand, and it's going to be very useful. 33, Alabama. Maybe some small fingers over here, but you do have this one large finger that you could pinch to the main portion of the hand to pick some things up. 32, Mississippi, the same concept with the one large finger, but additionally, it features a bunch of little fingers so you can pick up smaller items, so that's why it's a spot higher. 31, Arizona. Now, over here, there's not a ton of useful areas, but on the left side, there are several fingers that could be useful for grabbing items. 30 is New Hampshire. Again, there's nothing super special about this one, but there are several small fingers throughout, and then this little crevice right here could be useful. 29, Tennessee, several small fingers over on the left side, a hook up top, and on the right side, there's a very sharp point that could be very good for self-defense. 28, Oklahoma, you've got all these little fingers here for smaller items, and then for the bigger ones, you could flip your hand and use this portion. 27, Missouri. Now, you do have a lot of fingers on this one here on the left corner, the right bottom corner, the middle, and even up here in this corner, but the issue is the fingers are all so far apart, it might be hard to pinch them together and pick things up. 26, North Carolina, a similar situation, large finger here, a bunch of small ones on this side and this side, but they're so far apart, it might be hard to use them. 25 is Arkansas. Now, we're reaching the best of the best, so I got to start getting picky, and this one just doesn't have any large fingers that you could use to get bigger items, but it does have the little corner hooks that you could use and a bunch of small fingers. 24 is Washington. It does have the very large finger out here, but the problem is there's only one of them. 23 is Delaware. Now, this one would be great for a finger, just not as good for a hand. The main selling point with this one is the little claw up top would be easy to grab things with. 22 is Rhode Island. There's several fingers in this one, but it's just way too messy over here to be any higher on the list. 21, Maryland. Now, there are 3 large fingers on this one, but the palm of the hand is just way too skinny to be useful. 20 is New Jersey. Now, there are multiple fingers throughout the hand, but it's just not an ideal shape to be useful. 19, Kentucky, the same thing here. There's a ton of fingers on this one. They just aren't spaced out enough or big enough to be used for anything. 18 is Virginia. You've obviously got several fingers on this one, and they're of varying sizes. Some smaller ones here, a bigger one here, bigger ones up here. So it's decent, just not the best. 17 is Maine. Same thing here. Tons of fingers with all different sizes, so you can pick up a lot of various items. 16 is Florida. Now, this one would be a little bit better as a finger, but it works as a hand. You kind of use it like as a claw and just pinch it together when you need to pick things up. 15 is Louisiana, same thing, just pinch it together when you need to pick something up, and there are a lot of smaller fingers throughout the rest, so that's why it beat out Florida. 14 is Idaho. Now you've got a bunch of small fingers over here, and then on the left side you have the one larger finger, so if you ever need to pick up anything big, you can just pinch it downward. 13 is Pennsylvania. Now you've got these two fingers over here on the right side, which is great, and then over here on the left, you've got this little sharp hook that you could use to pick up anything else. Number 12 is Illinois. A ton of fingers on this one, and if you really use your imagination, it almost looks like an upside down hand, so that's why it made it this far. 11 is Ohio, another one that could look like an upside down hand with several different fingers around the bottom. The only issue is none of them are very big. 10 is Indiana. We continue with the theme of an upside down hand, and this one beat out the others because it looks like it has 5 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. 9 is Iowa. I like the versatility of this one. You've got 3 different fingers, a small one up here, a big one here, and a medium on the bottom, so you can use whatever you need. 8 is Minnesota. Now you've got small fingers across here and even a hook up top, but the best thing about this one is kind of the claws in the middle here. You've got a smaller area here and a bigger one down here, so you could pinch anything you needed to pick up. 7 is New York. Similar thing here, 3 various size fingers and a hook on the bottom. Number 6 is Massachusetts. Now, obviously, there's several fingers throughout, but the key to this one that got it to be top 6 is this hook right here on the right side. That would be very useful. Number 5 is West Virginia. You've got a nice palm area down here and then 3 fingers across the top. Certainly would be sufficient for a hand. Number 4 is Texas. Now, I really like this one. You've got a bunch of small fingers here and then some larger ones throughout here, here, and here. The only reason it wasn't any higher is because I just don't know how practical it is because none of the fingers are really close to each other. Number 3 is Wisconsin. It certainly looks like the shape of a hand, and there's some small fingers throughout, and then you've even got this little thumb area that could be useful. Number 2, Alaska, a large palm area and several fingers on the left side, and this long finger over here is certainly unique and could be beneficial. And number 1, Michigan. I struggle with this a little bit because there's no real fingers up here and the peninsula, but it looks like a mitten. It's perfect.